Okay, so for here, this is our third episode that we're doing, and I'm getting to run it this time. So I'm very excited to talk to the three of you. We're going to be talking about the 24-hour office. So maybe you guys could explain what that means and how that implies. I'm Elizabeth Nelson. I'm the co-founder of the Smart Building Collective, the organization and network behind the Smart Building certification. I'm a scientist, a writer, and a disruptor or just a pusher in the industry, as we say. And I'm really excited to kind of talk about sort of the intricacies that happen here. But I'm going to let you all three introduce yourself. Ladies first.
Hello, my name is Vivian. I'm the director of Edge Workspaces. That is the, let's say, co-working hospitality concept of some of the Edge buildings. Edge buildings, of course, very famous for their smart buildings and really sustainable buildings, as sustainable as possible. And we, with our co-working concept, try to also, in operation side of a building, follow that dream of net zero emissions and good behavior of all our tenants in terms of sustainability and also social, being social with each other, get to know each other. So that's my background.
And we're in one of your buildings right now.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we are in the Edge Olympic at the moment. And this is actually used to be the massage room and the yoga room.
That's why we all feel so relaxed.
Yeah, exactly.
It's got a good vibe to it.
Wondering what it was.
Yeah. So, so welcome in one of our buildings.
Wonderful. All right, Michael, you want to go next?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So I'm Michael Peters. Founder of LAMP. LAMP is Life and Asset Management using PropTech. And the big idea is to collect data and then make the buildings and the operations within those buildings better from those data. So getting insights and optimizing, that's our goal.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Wout Kok, I'm the founder of BigGrid. We actually have our tech here as a smart building solution.
You do.
In this building. It was one of the first projects we ever did. I'm an engineer, so I studied aerospace engineering and somehow ended up in let's say the less movable part of assets. And I worked as a consultant in engineering consultancy for the building technology for a little over a decade. And now with BigGrid, very active in trying to, on one hand, generate a lot of data and then try to make it usable and actionable on the operational side, which is for sure not the easiest part of the journey. So,
Sure. Yeah. Well, there's actually a big parallel between aerospace engineering and buildings, if you come to look at it.
Enlighten me, yeah.
Well, no, you have to guide the systems. They have to be up and running 24/7, and you have to be really redundant, because a lot of people are impacted if it goes wrong. So I do see the link, kind of, and especially
and
towards data.
Yeah, and there are of course a lot of different types of technology within that have to operate as one system. I do think that fortunately the average performance of systems in airplanes is a little bit more according to the design than in buildings. Yeah, because buildings, of course, we tend to build prototypes each time, right? There's little replication actually with Edge, that they started to try and replicate part of the technology from one building to the other. But obviously, like an airplane is much more like a fully detailed product. So there's a lot we can learn, I think, from that as an industry in how you get to a better performance of real estate. If you look to those kind of industries that don't build prototypes all the time.
Especially also the procedures. If you go to 24/7, being active and in use. And also your procedures and your maintaining the building and operational model really has to be adapted. Like, okay, what can we do? What do we need to check? How many times do we need to check? Because, most building standards are designed for classic use. And then you can say, okay, every 5 years we need to do some stuff. Every 15 years we need to do some stuff. and not a lot of people are impacted if the building is down. But if you start mixing all kind of people together, working online, hybrid modes, all those kind of things, well, then also from a maintain and from operational point of view, we need to start to rethink our procedures from data to actually go and predict what is going to happen. Because else, a lot of people and also their networks are being impacted. Not only the huge reputation damage. Imagine you have to close tomorrow because something didn't work. That would be huge. So we need to shift towards aerospace.
And I think you're touching on a very important aspect there, because like if you talk about these 24/7 buildings like the one we're in here, if you look how real estate is being utilized and how it's utilized today, how that is different than years ago, and how this concept here is different than next door, to make the best out of it and make it actually work sustainable, also if you set it off against how the building is being utilized, you need to create a feedback loop. Like in an airplane, if it's designed for one purpose and then you start to load it differently because, let's say, during the pandemic, you're shifting more cargo and less people, that affects the way the controls work, the fuel efficiency, all those kind of things, right? And that is being fed back, where I think in real estate, there is very little feedback loop yet, right? So there's a lot of potential by creating that feedback loop, by getting data out of how we actually use the buildings, not only to improve operations, but also to learn, how we can make the next building better,
design it better,
and more adaptive to the flexibility in how we use it.
And can we take a step back really quick? Because I just realized we've been talking about the 24/7 office,
Yeah.
but maybe we should say, like, what does that mean, and why are the initiatives that I'm not the one to say that, but there's this concept of looking at a building and saying, oh, we're using it for 8 to 10 hours a day, especially in busy cities where maybe traffic's really shit when they are trying to get to be there on time or leaving. So is there a way we can use this asset more? That's the financial aspect of it. There's also the social aspect. Vivian, can you talk about some of the other aspects of why this 24/7 office is interesting, important, responsible?
Well, we think that what we see is that that it is starting to be more important, also in terms of getting new projects in our portfolio, is that also government and municipalities really think it's important that a building is not, a dark building like most of the time. And
or worse, it's lit up all night but empty. Like
exactly. That's also sometimes what you see. That's even worse. But also from the financial point of view. So that's also something that within the building, you really need to take in consideration. So that is something we see. And of course, in the type of building that we are in, we have in this building over 90 tenants. So with all different kind of backgrounds and all different kind of trading behavior. So there, from a natural, already natural point of view, you see that a lot of people that do business with Asia, they already stay in the building longer. But for us, it is really important to, of course, have the financial aspect of it. So how can we utilize different spaces in different ways? So, for example, the restaurant we have here in this building, of course, is only occupied for 2 hours a day. But it's a huge space, and it's square meters we have to pay, right? So we already think, okay, how can we give a multiple purpose on the same floor? And after office hours, I think it's more important to think a lot more about the social aspect, or at least give the opportunity to the local community to come into our building and to, I don't know, the music school, or for example, when the war in Ukraine started, we had a lot of kids that were educated from our building. Then all these people looked for space. Okay, where can we go to give help? So, and I think it's a really interesting thought of how you can combine all these things really well. Of course, don't forget the financial aspect, because we also have to pay rent to our to the owner of this property. But to make it more social, I think that's at least one of the goals that I have.
I love that. And just making more of a community.
Exactly. And not only within the building, so the tenants that are in this building, but also to the local community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. So, what I also love about this discussion is we have two engineers. If you hadn't noticed, the two guys are very much engineers, and we have someone who's kind of living in the future and working what we hope to see in buildings coming up. And then I'm technically an engineer too, but I'm a biomedical engineer, so I'm.
Oh yeah.
I'm the
You're in disguise.
Yeah, I'm a little bit in disguise.
Yeah.
But so looking at the neuroscience of all this and the human implications, and I think this topic really is that, right? This is a human situation, a engineering puzzle, putting this in. And I think what's really interesting is, how do we look at this? So how do we do it? We say, okay, doors are open 24/7, right? That just part of smart technology, right? Oh, just do that, right? Yeah. How do we do this?
Well, I think, if I can go first, I think it's also very important to realize that we have to redefine what a building actually is. We discussed earlier, coming up to this room, like what is a building and how do you define a building? Because like having one purpose-built buildings, even if you organize other activities, well, it's even more like, okay, we already have a building and there's a floor not being used, or there's a space that can be used more efficiently and more frequently. Like a ground floor where you can actually go and activate that floor with security measures, of course, to have another function, like having music, schooling, or whatever is going on, or what the need is of the community around the building, the municipality and all those, other already communities that are already formed within most cities. And how can we as a building, how can we implement, technology to facilitate actually the usage of space, because that's what we need to do. If we need people to actually manage it 24/7, then we're kind of lost, because then it becomes very expensive. You don't find labor force, all those kind of things, and then the system will eventually just prove not to be that doesn't have a return on investment. And that's where technology comes in, where you really can go and say, okay, we have access control, we can have safety, security, also for the people that are in the building and using the building, that we can really say, okay, this feels like home. I can be myself, I can be secure, I don't have to be afraid. I know there will be light, I know that there are fire installations monitoring the whole thing. So I think the safety aspect is very important, and especially technology can guide us into that one. So making those buildings 24/7, and that's the idea.
Yeah, and I think the financial aspect that you mentioned is also very important. So if you want to create that social part in a building, that part is not free, right? But then again, there's only so much rent available for like revenue and funding those kind of things. So what we see is that in these 24/7 buildings, because they operate differently, there are also opportunities with technology to make things cheaper on an operational level, to free up part of the cash flow to finance those kind of social parts. So for example, we have a client that has a multi-tenant building. And one of these problems then becomes, so when is the building empty, right? Because then you need to put the security on. You don't want to have a guard like running around every few hours. So we then develop software that on our data can automatically detect, okay, the building is now empty, you can switch on the alarm, right?
Yeah.
So that's basically free.
Yeah.
And that saves money. And trying to, for example, adapt the way you climatize the building, such that you don't climatize where you already know people are not going to be. It saves money, but does allow that if you're here at 10, you can still be comfortable, right? Without having to heat the whole building until 11. Those kind of things I think are very important, because otherwise it's not only that the social part costs money, but you're going to find out that operating the building like that is going to be a lot more expensive than the traditional way, and then
Yeah.
it sounds like a good story, but financially,
Yeah,
it's not gonna
exactly.
happen again.
Well,
Exactly.
it also a bit depends where you actually draw the border, because if you go and look at the building as such, you have the financial returns, but you also have the non-financial returns within sustainability.
Sure.
Well, if you say, okay, by using space more multi-purpose and more ad hoc, you can also go and say, okay, we don't have to construct new square meters somewhere else, because like you have the music school. It's a good example. Music schools are at night, because during the day they're empty. So why don't you combine then? The office building will be less occupied during evening and nighttime. So maybe you can just work together, and then you save a building actually that doesn't need to be constructed from a resource perspective.
That's the
That's
most
huge.
sustainable thing
It's
to do.
yeah, for sure. So and that's something we also need to really look at true cost or total cost or whatever, which mechanism you also want to use to measure, and then also social aspects, of course, come into play, where you see that well-being and health issues and all those kind of things will for sure also have their positive impact.
It's bringing the sharing economy into real estate.
For sure.
That's that's going to be the biggest impact on sustainability in real estate.
And also making the link to circular. Yeah, everything as a service.
Yeah, everything as a service.
Because then you get the responsibility with the right parties, and also everything is becoming that complex in a way in a building. Like it used to be pretty easy to heat a building. Now it's pretty complex to heat a building. So you also need those as a service providers to actually go and manage their own devices, so that you at least know that they're being used optimally, because otherwise their own earnings will go down.
Exactly.
So they have an incentive to do things right, and that's I think very important in that perspective.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that comes back to this idea of knowing your numbers. In all industries, the medical industry, sports even, it's all coming down to knowing your numbers. So real estate, it's a very exciting point, but we're a little bit behind, I think, for most industries of knowing what's going on, then making actions towards it. Vivian, when you look at, because this building has a lot of numbers.
It has a lot of numbers, yeah.
And looking at forecasting, and I'll also ask the engineers about this, because I wouldn't let a math question pass you guys by. But what's the difference between working with numbers and working kind of just ad hoc in that way?
Yeah, it's a huge difference.
Yeah.
If you look at, we talked about this before, but the occupancy of meeting rooms. If you just look at the meeting rooms and you don't have the data, then you think, oh, our meeting rooms are doing pretty well because they're like, I see them occupied like every day. But yeah, if they're occupied only 2 hours a day, every meeting room, then you have very low occupancy and very big opportunities to not only look for external business, as we call it, but also in terms of, okay, but I do see that on a Tuesday, the occupancy is really good, right? So the prices on a Tuesday can go up, right? So that's just a small example in a financial point of view.
Like hotels.
Like hotels, it's like the yield management or the airplane industry.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure.
We
Again.
learned from them. Yeah, but but also in terms of if you look at data on occupancy rates or popular areas in a building.
Or more interesting maybe is unpopular areas.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, but to learn from, okay, why is it that these areas are really popular, and why is it that they're not popular, and then make a change in our next project to see, okay, we need to use this area, we need more of these areas, less of these areas. And that goes all the way up to, in our co-working area, which seat is more popular than other seats.
Yeah.
right? So it goes really into that detail that we, in the next project, we should order more of these chairs because people tend to like them.
Yeah.
And then put them in that area. And then it's more likely to have actually more business.
Yeah.
So in terms of numbers, I can go on forever. So,
But what's really interesting about what you're saying is the combination of what the data is telling you with the human action.
yeah,
So there's this huge kind of waiting game in smart technology where people are waiting for the black box that solves all the problems, it takes care of itself, and humans don't have to screw it up or whatever.
Yeah.
But what you guys do is, I think, really important to show the case that it's very, very helpful, but then you need someone to come in and say, okay, this, the psychology behind big meeting rooms is that people feel too bashful or whatever to reserve a big meeting room for themselves.
Yeah.
So the little meeting rooms are actually better.
Yeah.
Or this place has more outlets for everyone to plug their technology in, so we need to do more. Or it has a chair that's covered a little bit more.
Yeah.
So that psychology in it. And I think that's one of the things that doesn't all, is that my misunderstanding?
I think this is a very interesting topic, because like what you see, because myself and our company, we're involved on both sides in terms of design and build phase and the operational phase. And I think in this building review is a little bit different, but most of the time, that kind of expertise that you're referring to, right, to understand beyond just the numbers, okay, you know, why is this happening, right? Why do people not use the big meeting room as much or whatever? Yeah, that is a skill set that is hopefully present during design, right, today, but not during operation.
Yeah.
Right. So to not only just to try and improve that operational phase, right? To understand, hey, this is not working for this purpose, so to make effective change in it, but also to translate that back to like the next project. Yeah, that requires the expertise that is available on the front in the design phase to start looking at that operational data. Yeah, that I think is going to be in the next 5 years going to be a game changer in the real estate. If you get that process,
That's coming? I mean,
For sure. But it will shift actually. I think like property management and asset management will actually shift towards being more data driven. But, and I totally agree, so the data is only giving you facts, giving you numbers. Hopefully they're facts. It can be measurement error, but okay, giving you facts. But you still have to do the analysis yourself. And okay, ChatGPT wise, you can now start to rely on artificial intelligence, but not yet in buildings. We tried. So so you have to do the analysis yourself, and you have to bring in the sociology, psychology, all those OG kind of subjects. And that's something you need to do yourself on the one hand, but it's also very multidisciplinary because you go from technical installations like light levels, comfort, occupancy, the dimensions of rooms, going to which type of furniture, is it wood, is it metal? So everything is very multidisciplinary, and that's also why a lot of times we used to have like an engineer designing the building. Now it's an engineering team, and then preferably somebody who has experience in operating and managing the building to also bring in that expertise and say, but that doesn't really work well with that combination. And so the technologies as such are all fine, but you have to make the ultimate combination. And that's something that's lacking today on the market. There's not enough insight. And then, data won't solve that problem. It will facilitate.
It also, I find this a fascinating topic because I think it's going to be a change in the whole profession of everything that comes with designing a building on a scientific level. So that should connect in some way. But today, if you ask an architect, why do you design this floor like this, right? He might say, or she, by experience, we know that this works best, right? But that's just best practice, and maybe behind closed doors they will tell you, this is just how we've always done it. And it's the same.
It's our template.
It's the same for how we design the HVAC system, right? If you ask the engineer, so why is the air handling unit this big? They say, that's the standard, right? We always do that like that. And it's because they never had data about the operations, how things, what does actually work. So we talked about round tables being more pleasant than square, and okay, these are, say, on the psychological field, someone has actually done research about that. But on a real estate level, those kind of inside real estate data has always been missing. So it's going to also challenge all the professionals, not just on the operational side, but also on the design phase, to move away from best practices, and this is how we've always done it, or this is just an ISO standard, to start looking at actual data about what we've all been building and what works and what doesn't, right? And how does that change over time? And then from within that sort of like window that we can look back and then try to define, okay, so how are we going to build the future?
Yeah.
But I also, sorry to elaborate on that one, because this, so we also are in the field of neuroscience, looking at, okay, what's going on, subconscious and those things. And one of the experiments we did was with parametrical design, because we all trust data. Data, it's our thing. So if you start a parametrical design, is actually where you tell a system your constraints and what you want. So in every room we want this amount of daylight. We want an easy. You don't have to go further than 50 meters to find an exit. At least that many square meters. So you just give in your constraints, and then you give it. You define actually an optimization problem, and just say design me a building. And then you get those very strange, weird-looking buildings, but they are perfectly match your design, so your constraints, if there's a solution, of course. And, well, we did that, and from a neuroscience perspective, we could actually prove that it was perfect from an operational point of view. It was, so we had all the constraints, and then people look at the building and say, we're not going to build that one. And why not? We don't, even in a metaverse, we try to recreate the physical world as we know it. Everybody in the metaverse is drawing the same building as they would do in real life. Why is that? Why isn't that spherical? Or why not a pyramid? Why not, I don't know, why even a shape? It's virtual. And still we need that, because we need that safety, and we need that recognizing the patterns where we're in to feel ourselves secure and have a meeting. Even if you in metaverse, you have to check that one. If you have a conversation between avatars, you turn to each other so that you look to each other, which is complete nonsense because you're staring at a camera, at a screen. But again, you and I have the same, but I'm aware of it. But my avatar has to need to face the one that's talking, and I'm even busy changing my direction in function of which avatar is speaking. And that's really deep social contracts that are really within ourselves, that are coming out. And it also shows how conditioned we are as human beings. And then transforming into a 24/7 building, being used multi-tenant, not even multi-tenant, but multi-person, because even externals, nothing has to do with the building, can come by and say, I want to use this room. It's a huge shift, actually, also from a mental point of view, from a psychological point of view. But it's a shift we need to make, and we will benefit from it. From a sustainability point of view, I'm sure that's the way to go. At least until we all get virtual. But
Right.
Another statement, of course.
Okay, can we do two scenarios? And I'm curious what all of you think, but can we say two identical buildings, or the same building that goes through two scenarios, decides to go 24/7. One does the worst possible job that they can do, and one does something that no one else, the best possible, something that we haven't even seen before. What does that look like? What is the full spectrum of what we're talking about here?
Oh.
I mean, should we go positive or negative first?
Oh yeah, I'm kind of negative from nature.
I know.
I see the things that can go well.
Worst case scenario, so I think you want to do that one first.
Yeah.
Okay, so worst case scenario, 24/7 building. What happens?
Oh, security. That's the first thing. People coming in, stealing stuff, using it like a kind of public toilet, all those kind of things. Complete anarchy. That's the worst thing that could happen.
Okay.
Which would actually lead to a lot of maintenance and reinvestments. And well, imagine leaving the door open at night. What would happen here? just open it up
Yeah.
and no security installed, total freedom. How long would it take for you to have to redo the whole building?
Yeah, of course, that long. Yeah.
And also some bad things
Yeah.
that maybe could go unnoticed, right? So if you're not looking at what's going on in the building, you could have a lot of things slipping through the cracks or very low functioning aspects of the building, like you were talking.
Yeah, I think, I'm not thinking about security first. I'm thinking about a very unattractive building, everything standard, no social thing in the building at all. I'm imagining, and I know they still exist in the US, these huge office floors,
No windows.
no windows, cubicles. I mean, then people actually don't even want to go there, and there's nothing to steal in those kind of buildings. So just
The sad thing is that you're not describing our worst case scenario, but just a practical example.
Yeah, true.
except for me, it's really the worst case. It's really the worst case. It's
We actually see the same thing. So we manage also some co-workings, and we have a lot of people that say once you're used to having this interaction and this creative environment and well, even having better coffee and all those kind of things, they never want to go back again.
Yeah.
That's really
Yeah.
it's really addictive, and I can also imagine that. Well, we ourselves, we are also nomads, so we travel around, and
Yeah.
wherever our laptop is our home. So that's quite natural, and
yeah.
I do
We also
understand.
saw it in COVID. I think for me that was such a proof that were actually doing a good job, because during COVID, also where it was said, please stay at home, our building was occupied all the time. All the time. People, of course, they stayed home 2 days a week instead of none. But they were always, thank God I can come here and I'm just my own boss. I'm a small company. I decide myself and I'm sitting in my own office. It was occupied all the time.
Well, that's different than what we're seeing with some, well, actually,
Big
industries,
corporates,
big corporates saying, can you force people to come to the office? Can we make this law? Can we?
But that's a management issue,
Yeah,
isn't it?
I think so too.
I have strong feelings about this.
Okay. Maybe we should elaborate on that one.
But, yeah.
Yeah, That I mean, that's a very cultural question, and so I think if in this part of the world, and Dutch people maybe even more, we don't like anyone telling us what to do. Basically, we don't. We're very bad at accepting any form of hierarchy. So I think it's a cultural question as well. So if you work in America, so your example of these very inspiring offices, then it's a different atmosphere. It works differently in organizations, and I think they have. If you say, okay, you shouldn't be forcing someone, right? If you have to explain to your people why it's valuable to go to the office, there is a problem underneath that needs to be addressed. That's a much easier conversation, I think, in our kinds of organizations and environments that we work in, than where you work for an employer that thinks it's a good idea to have these cardboard offices on the floor with no windows in a country where that is legal, right? That's a different culture on an organizational level.
Yeah. Well, and this idea of buildings as this luxury product, right? So this building is kind of considered sort of this amazing experience, right? There's different offices throughout the world. Google loves to make their offices very fun and engaging, and that process. And we were talking about management. That empowering. Is there such a thing as an empowering building or an empowering job? Where does this kind of control and freedom come into this? And does the 24/7 office play a role in that?
To be honest, I think it is not necessarily the 24-hour. It is much more about building buildings that are focused to provide what the people that work in it actually need to do their job, right? Why do you come to the office, and does that building help you? The facilities there helps you. So we have, as an entirely different example, but we have one client for Ziggo. They have an office at Utrecht Central, 15,000 square meters, single tenants. But because that building and that workspace is very close to what their staff actually want and expect from their workplace. What they experienced is that a lot of people from, that were actually stationed in other offices in the country would prefer to go to that office to work because it facilitates them. What happens is that you see that they have quite a high utilization of that office and obviously lower of other ones, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's more about, seeing an office as sort of like a tool that you want to like tailor to what your people that want to use the tool need it, than to build like this one concept and that has to fit everyone, right?
Yeah.
Because what we think today is a good idea, is maybe for you in this building that's not so much the case, because this happened to be a good idea for hybrid working as well. And in the pandemic, for a lot of organizations, what they would have said was a good idea 3 years ago is different today, right? And there's no guarantee that what is today is still a good idea in 3 years. So you have to think more about that moving away from real estate being considered as something we call it outdated delivery. Yeah, so the structure of how we make real estate is just we're going to ask you what you need today, and we're going to design that, we're going to build that, and then that takes 5 years, right?
Exactly.
And then you're stuck with it for a decade, right? Try and explain that to a teenager, and he's not going to work in this industry, right? So it just doesn't make any sense.
It is also why the as a service is that interesting, because you have the flexibility. You're not tied to an installation that you have right off of 30 years and those things, but
as a service also means that you to survive as a business issue, if you provide it as a service, you need to make it adaptable.
For sure.
If you don't,
you're dead.
Your tenants are going to run away.
Run away.
Yeah.
Well, and if you go to the luxury, I see it's even in job descriptions. Can you imagine 10 years ago, in the job description, you have some great coffee and a nice space to work? Yeah, of course, but what is my car and what's my salary? Because that was the big thing 10 years ago, especially in IT. Which car I'm going to drive and what's my salary? Now it's about...
what do you mean, my car?
Okay, sure. Well, good thing. No, but now it's about... you're in a nice atmosphere. You have coffee. You have colleagues. You have a pass. You can work wherever you want because we're in a network of 24/7 offices. Even if you really want to see talent attraction, we're evolving towards freelance jobs. Freelance jobs, often also international. So now I'm doing a project in Minnesota or Minneapolis. I can even choose and say, okay. It's a 6-hour or 7-hour time difference. So now I'm going to use my office at other times because, I'm in that project. And I think the whole freelancing talent attraction is also that important because not only buildings, but also the work that needs to be done becomes very multidisciplinaire, and you need to hire experts and form teams to do a job and then another team to do a job, and the building should actually facilitate that. And that's the evolution we see in work, in talent, but also in our building, because we have to follow that one. It will even be worker as a service. So everything is as a service, I'm sure of that.
Well, we can't underestimate the talent aspect of this, because I've worked on so many different making cool spaces, living labs, and really technology focused, very cool spaces. And the one thing that I always have to remember is HR is going to bring all of the interviewees into my space, into my experiment, because it's the coolest, well, I think. It's one of the cooler spaces in the office. So when we look at talent, when we look at this kind of ripple effect, and Michael, I love when you talk about ripple effects because it always blind my mind and same with you about there. How big can we dream then? So the other side of the scenario, we talked about looking at occupancy where you say, wow, we can do a lot better. We talked about 24-hour, we can do a lot better. Psychologically, we don't know how humans are always going to react to things, but we know, you said something to me one time, you said, the good news is we have a lot
of room for
yeah. So what's the dream? What could we actually accomplish if we really took a look at our numbers, looked at how it influenced people, tried to do the right thing, got communities involved, got governments involved, leaned into more sustainable, more social, more everything, what's possible here?
Yeah, so that's a very broad question. Yeah? So you're asking it to two engineers, right? So we're trying to look into all these domains and how to integrate it.
We can do that over 15 minutes.
No, but I think the biggest room for improvement is, on one hand, it's what Vivian said, is increasing the utilization of the assets that we have, because there's a lot of carbon involved in just creating them. But then the other part is, when we improve utilization, to make sure that they actually operate sustainable, right? So energy efficiency in real estate is just terrible, to be honest. Yeah. So that we're all, thanks to Putin, trying to save gas, right, at home. We have nests or whatever have you, right? And so it's very normal now to have at home a thermostat that, on one hand, we'll see, hey, Vivian typically now works in the office on Tuesday, Thursday, so we're not going to heat your home Tuesday and Thursday during the day. Where we do accept that, like, you go to the office, that this building just heats itself from 7 to whatever time it closes, right? And that doesn't look at, oh, but this space is only used between 9 and 4, right? It doesn't automatically adapt. And then it's even worse that, like, at home, you're quite certain that your nest does not control your neighbor's boiler, but your boiler, right? These buildings, a lot of times, not talking like 2%, that's actually wrong, right? So, like, this climate control loop is actually providing heat next door, right? And that creates discomfort and waste energy. So this is what I mean, like, a lot of room for improvement. When we start to approach these things differently, with different technology, but also with different policies, and it requires also different skill sets. So it's not an easy thing, but when we do this, you can improve across the board. So you get better financial returns with happier people, with better sustainability of the real estate. I think that's realistic, right? But if we achieve that, then we're going somewhere. Yeah.
I think I always used to say, without any proof, that buildings are lacking 10 years behind of a car. So what we found in a car like 10 years ago, now you can find in buildings. The reason behind that is because, if you start to develop a sensor, then, well, it's a very expensive thing, and buildings are not going to implement that very expensive thing, but 10 million cars will, and that would make it cheaper, and then that technology can be put into a building, and that's why there's a lack of 10 years between cars and buildings. But if you look at the evolution a car did and the evolution a building will do, that will kind of, well, I always look at the car industry, not because I'm into cars, because I don't care about cars.
You just talked about how you wanted the car.
So
That was 10 years ago.
But that was 10 years ago when I didn't know yet.
It was just a word.
But if you go and look, so we had central heating. Now we have heating the seats. So there's no central heating. Well, there's still a central heating, but so we have air conditioning. We have safety features. We have a lot of data helping to maintain the car. It's now coming towards buildings. We have sharing models where we say, okay, this is not my car anymore, but it's a shared car. It's the same with buildings. It's not my car. It's not my building anymore. We share the building. If you go and look on everything that's from a business model going on, we lease the car, we lease the building. So there's a lot of parallels going on. And if you start to reason for cars, it's much easier than for a building. Because a building, it's fast food, so it's real estate, it's there, it's fixed. And then for some reason, it's difficult to start and imagining things. Well, for cars and bikes and all those things, it's much easier. So try to imagine, like, okay, what's the most optimal car that you can have? I wouldn't mind if somebody drove my car around all day. It's parked like 20 hours a day, or even more. It's parked. So why? It's a lot of resources going on there, which are not being utilized. So as long as, because I'm spoiled, as long as when I need a car, there is a car, I'm fine with that. I don't need my own car. And it's the same with the office. When I need Wi-Fi, I need Wi-Fi. When I need a coffee, I want a coffee. I'm spoiled again. But that's okay. We can facilitate that in the same way with the same business models and with some adaptation of technology and go from there. And that's, to me, looking at what's possible within a mobility point of view, if we can replicate that towards buildings, we are already a long, long way from where we. We are reaching to our goals, as climate neutrality, being full electric. Buildings are going to be full electric within the coming 20, 30, 40 years, or something like that. So that's the same evolutions are going on there, and those parallels are interesting to see. And again, if we can catch up with the automobile industry, that would be great. That would be a real advancement from a sustainability, social point of view.
I actually totally agree with you.
That's a good.
No, but I think that's what needs to be then still has to be done is of course I hear a lot of people. I don't mind having my own car, especially the younger generation. They don't need to own anything.
No, for sure.
Right? But to then really make people not buying their own car anymore and then, start to use the car whenever they need it and to make an infrastructure that actually can do that. And you do that the same with buildings, then I think in the end there are no traffic jams anymore, and there are
Sure not.
there are less buildings and only way more beautiful buildings that people actually want to go to, instead of tons of buildings that I see now that are just look, like ghost towns, and that would create a really much more sustainable world, I think, and that would be awesome.
But I think for sake of argument here, I do not totally agree. So I
You
think
want your own car.
no. I think an analogy or something that you can learn from other industries is always the fastest and most valuable way to learn. What we do need to do is also be considerate of very structural differences between the two industries. And like if you look to mobility and real estate, like real estate, when you talk about finance, of course, is a lot about predictable long-term returns on your investment, right? So operating companies in between, like your own, that will give that long-term return and long-term predictable return are very important in this structure, right? And I think when you want to try and adapt those kind of process that you see in the car industry, we have to be very considerate of that very fundamentally different financial structure compared to how sharing a vehicle or a bicycle, how that works, because there's a different financial industry behind that.
Yeah.
Do you think that's the case? I'm not totally agreeing here, because in the end it's about cash flows and where the cash flow is coming from. For like a shared car, like a Poppy kind of company, it's also about cash flows. They want to have the best return on their car as long as possible and the most predictable car, because they have to write off the investment they have done. So in essence,
a lot of real estate today, of course, is financed, for example, from pension funds.
Oh yeah,
right? So that
sure.
the interest that you pay for that is based on the predictability of
that's true.
But
how predictable is that? How sustainable is that financing model within the future, knowing that there's a social shift going on?
Yes, and that's a very interesting question. So you get into these. If we have the debate and then watch movies like Moneyball and those kind of things, right? Then you don't you get less enthusiastic about that. But so you can only change so many things at the same time.
That's true.
I think
that's true.
If we want to make that change, then it will go faster if you're considerate of at least the today fundamentally different financial structures, and that those structures might change in the future as well. But if you take a mortgage on that will happen, then that change is going to be more restricted, right? Well, if we can make that structure of that shared office that is a higher utilization and more sustainable, fitting to say the pension fund needs financially, and maybe a more, maybe even a more so like almost like venture capital fund that's new into the real estate that wanted to disrupt things from a financial perspective, then we're going to have more impact.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at it from a totally different way. I'm like, okay, pension funds is actually very important. It has proven to be very important from our economical point of view, robustness of our financial systems and all those kind of things. But that's also because technology couldn't actually pick up the pace for finance constructions. But now we are into spaces where we have decentralized finance, where you can actually go and create something like security tokenization offerings, where you can actually go and dismantle from a financial point of view a building into separate ownership tokens and go and distribute them, so that also people not only can use the building but also have a financial return.
Shared ownership.
Shared ownership.
On the financial side.
Where you say, okay, we're going to construct portfolios. And in my belief, I'm a bit biased because I did a lot of research on this one actually. In my belief, it's the only way that we can ever make the sustainable transformation, because people today are not, most people are good, are willing to be more sustainable, but just aren't able to invest in like heat pumps and solar panel and all those kind of things. That's also why if we create 24/7 buildings, we have to do it as sustainable as possible and with sustainability at the top of mind. It's the most important part, because we, from a professional point of view, can generate an impact that, entre guillemets, normal people cannot realize, because they lack the knowledge, and they don't have the time to acquire the knowledge because they're working. So that's a bit the thing. And also for private real estate, I really think that there will be professional bodies actually going and have some third-party investment in those, optimization of those private homes to make it more optimal and to make it more sustainable. And then being able, from a financial point of view, to participate, but not pay the whole, but participate for what you can and have a return on that one. It's a very nice economical system, which is too soon today. I do agree. Everybody will be...
no, that would help.
But that's the financial revolution still has to come. I'm anxious about that one, much more than the transitioning to real estate and having technology put in, because it's really deeply fundamental and people are willing to profit. It's going to be very easy to profit of that one. So we have to take care that after cars and buildings, then we have the financial system, which is lacking 40 years behind, something like that, without any proof. But it is coming, and also there we will see that shared economy and more circularity and all those things will be actually implemented, and will generate a lot of new business models that are going on there.
Well, because we talked about the financial industry and we talked about putting this together, who do you think is going to win in the long run? Do you think it is a conservative step-by-step process following the typical real estate, you can tell which way I'm already leaning with, process, playing by the rules, or is this a game for the bold? Is this something that if we, and I'm biased, I think if we lean into the human side of this, if we lean into going bold and we let people start choosing the better option, if you want to hit somebody, hit them in their pocketbook, right? And the banks follow the money too. So do we need to play by the rules? Do we need to go bold?
I think, depends on the answer being what we want it to be or what we think it's going to be.
Yeah.
If we want to make impact, right?
Yeah.
Then you better try and work with the system, except for where you need to disrupt it to make the impact, right?
So choosing A and B.
Choosing wisely.
if you look at us, what we try to do, we change and disrupt things that we think we need to change to make that impact on sustainability and how we use real estate and making real estate more healthy and comfortable, but work with the system where there is no direct need to disrupt it like that. So we like the clients that are bold, right? Because they also push us to make these steps, right? But you make the impact where the majority is. And the majority of people, doesn't matter where the industry is not the bold one.
Yeah.
That's just, don't want to be pessimistic there, but at the end, if you want to change things,
Yeah.
you need the majority.
Yeah. So we give the bold ones a megaphone a little bit, which I'm going to segue into, which is what the Smart Building Collective is all about. We have 3 of our partners here today with amazing solutions, buildings, consultancy. Get in touch with us, get in touch with them to keep this conversation going and be that bold type to change this industry, push us forward, make us more social, more responsible, and all of the other amazing ripple effects that might come out of this. And we will help put the megaphone up for you. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.